Thank you.
Okay, so we are recording and streaming whenever you're ready to start.
Okay, do you know where Mary is by any chance?
Probably trying to get on the same way I did. Spent 12 minutes trying to get on.
You're kidding. Wow.
I have to download WebEx every single time we have a meeting.
Gee,
Oh,
How strange.
No, it's just charming.
taking patience then. So with luck, Charity will turn up. But just given the interest of time, let's go ahead and do introductions. And I'm going to suggest that we kind of do the introductions and combine them with our check-in, and then we can move to the public comment if there is anybody. I know Mike and I both got a note from Grace, who is a high school student who had met with us back in October, and I think attended the November meeting virtually. And I'm hoping that she's able to turn up, unless if she just gets on YouTube, she would not basically be visible to us. Is that true, Dylan?
Yeah, she'd be
Yeah,
watching
that's right.
me.
Yeah. So that might be what she's actually doing then. So, well, let's go ahead and go through the introductions, and with luck, Charity will turn up in a bit. So my name is Greg Smith. Along with Mike, I have become a co-chair of this board, and just a little bit about my own background for Ranjini's sake. I taught environmental education and education in general at Lewis and Clark for 23 years and focused a lot on sustainability issues and place-based education. And so in my retirement, this is a way to kind of enact my place-based concerns. And another piece of information that may be of interest to folks is I had a chance to meet with John Williams last week, and just serendipitously met with Rory, the mayor, as well. And so we had a good conversation, and I'll report back on that as we go through our meeting. So I guess go to Mike, and then we can go to Ranjini.
Hi, Mike Carlson, co-chair. This will be our first meeting, Greg and I, as co-chairs. Just a little bit about me. From Texas originally, but I moved up here about 7 years ago. I currently work as an engineer, and I'm pursuing a graduate degree in renewable energy and sustainability through Penn State. Like to spend my time gardening and occasionally make an appearance over at the parks to help clear some of the invasive ivy over there.
Great, thank you.
that's great. Thank you.
So Ranjini.
Yes, hello everyone. Nice to be here. I moved in from India 6 months back. So I'm new to West Linn, and it was through charity I got involved with the green team at Rosemont Ridge Middle School. And also I've done my training from the Eco School Network. So it's a good experience so far, and I have experience in waste, in composting and waste, separation and all of it in India. So I have that experience, and I'm basically from the software engineering background. So I was a computer science teacher for about 3 years before I came here. And so I've got myself also involved in crafts. So I teach Rosemont Ridge students, reusing the papers or from the magazines or whatsoever around them to create meaningful crafts or artifacts. So last month in December, I conducted various sessions for the green team as well as the art students in Rosemont Ridge for 6th and 7th grade. And also for the West Linn community, Charity and I did a combined session in teaching, the artifacts that could be used for winter, or hung on the tree and so on. So it was a nice session that I had, got myself involved into. And yeah, that's the background. So I have two kids. The daughter, elder one goes to West Linn High School, and the younger one to Rosemont Ridge Middle School.
Great. Just
Thanks for having me here.
So welcome, Ranjini. I just wanted to mention that I worked for a number of years, I had a colleague at Portland State named Bruce Williams who had grown up in Mumbai and
Wow.
did her PhD work here and was a really significant voice in gardening education in the United States. We did edited a book together and did articles together as well. So
That's wonderful.
it's she was really a wonderful. So it's wonderful to have somebody from India on the committee. So that's
Thank you
nice.
so much for having me here, and looking forward to be, supportive to the group in all initiatives that you have taken so far. And
Great.
yeah, I have some interest in home gardening as well. So I've tried growing about 12 to 13 varieties of, vegetables.
Mhm.
So yeah, I have interest in gardening as well.
Nice. Victoria.
How delightful. If everyone who is new to West Lynn got this involved, it would be an amazing place. So I'm
Seriously.
so delighted
Exactly.
we're part of this group. This is just lovely. I'm Victoria Meyer. I've been helping to run the West Lynn Community Garden for, I don't know, 10 years or so, maybe 15, I'm not sure. So looks like a lot of us who love to garden are also interested in sustainability. And I think that's an interesting bit. As part of my check-in, or shall I do that later?
Oh, go ahead and check in now. Yes.
I had a very interesting meeting yesterday. I was in Salem with the Metro Climate Action Team delivering books to each of the legislators. And at 2:30, it was the leading team, and I just happened to be with them, had a meeting with Mark Gamba, who was
Right.
the mayor of Milwaukee and is now representative for that district. And he called the meeting and wanted us to be there. He is on fire to do something or in the legislature that has to do with sustainability. And said, if you ask Oregonians, 98% of them will say, what's the most important thing for pressing the legislature right now? They'll all say housing. Nobody's going to say climate. So he's working as hard as he can to see that that does not happen, and trying to get actual people, trying to set aside money so there'll be staff members working on it, the same way he did in Milwaukee. And I can't help but think, my gosh, if we had somebody in West Lynn pushing as hard as he did in Milwaukee, we could at least have a half-time person like they have in Milwaukee working on sustainability.
He's pretty remarkable. Charity. We're just doing check-ins and introduction, and you already know Ranjini, so, but
Yeah.
go for it.
Sorry, I could not get in on my computer's blocked this website, so I couldn't get in. So I had to download the app on my phone and sign in this way instead.
Good. Well, I'm glad it worked.
Yeah.
So you want to introduce yourself or check in if
Oh,
there's
sure.
anything in
I don't know.
particular?
I'm Charity, and I'm a resident here of West Lynn, and am involved with the Eco School Network and with helping with the schools be sustainable in West Lynn. I'd say the ones my children have gone to. And Regini's been lovely, and we've worked together over at Rosemont and have done some neat projects. And she even did one of the sustainability, what was it, educational things, doing her quilling, which is really cool that we did in December. So that's pretty much it. And yeah, I like recycling and making sure things are upcycled and reused. And so that's it.
Great. Thank you. Mary, do you want to introduce yourself? Ranjina, Mary is a city council person and is our liaison to the city council.
Hello, Mary. Yeah, nice meeting you.
Thank you. Hi. Thank you, Greg. Yes, it's nice to meet you. Welcome. And I'm really excited to get a chance to work with you.
Great.
Oh,
And
likewise.
Dylan, what can you tell us about yourself? He is our
Well,
staff liaison.
Yes, I'm Dylan. I'm staff liaison. At least for now, there's been a lot of shakeups and roles lately. I'm the assistant to the city manager. I also work on emergency management, a little bit of communications, kind of a little bit of everything. I've worked for the city for like 18, 19 years. So yeah, long time, worked throughout lots of departments. Yeah.
Great.
That's great.
So, and then we have one other person who had signed up, I think as I'd mentioned, named Kate Jaspers, who has another meeting that happens this time, and will not be free until June to join the SAB. So we're going to have a kind of a reduced number for a few months. I explored the possibility with Dylan and her about changing the date to Tuesday, but Tuesday doesn't work for her. So I will try to keep her as informed as possible of our work. Try to have some conversations with her as well outside the context of the meetings, and just kind of keep her abreast of what we're doing. In terms of leadership of the SAB, Mike and I thought we would just exchange positions, rotate in terms of facilitation and note taking. So tonight I'll facilitate, Mike will take notes and minutes, and then the next time around in February, we'll just switch roles that way. So I'll be doing the facilitation this evening. I think the first item of business is the approval of the November meetings. Did everybody have a chance to read those?
Yep.
Yeah.
Any corrections or revisions?
I don't think
Yes.
so.
So can I have a motion to approve the
No.
minutes?
Greg,
Victoria had a comment.
Oh, Victoria, yes.
on the second page where it says April presentation about container gardening,
Yeah.
I would like to amend that.
So shall we just get rid of it since
Uh,
you didn't want to do that?
I'm actually have already started trying to contact the people for Backyard Habitat.
Uh-huh.
And they have not answered my email, so I'll try again to reach them a different way.
We've
Okay.
had somebody contact Greg and I from the Backyard Habitat Certification Program. I think they may have been a change in staffing there, so that might be behind your difficulty in getting contact with them. We can put them in touch with you.
That'd be great.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
happy to try to do that for April, but I just don't want to do the container gardening.
Okay. Good.
I'm
No
not
problem
sure
with that. So I'll just put, shall I just put on backyard gardening?
Sure.
The backyard okay, I'll just change that. So backyard. And then I will send those to you with that correction, Dylan.
Thanks.
So can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I move to approve the minutes.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. And all in favor? Raise your
Aye.
hands.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Okay. Good enough. Thank you. We can then move on from there to any public comment, but I don't see anybody else on the meeting. So I guess we can move past that. I wanted to spend a little bit of time just talking about the role of the advisory boards for Ranjini's sake, and just a reminder for all of us as well. And Mike did kind of a useful historical review that he'll go over, just to kind of look at the kinds of things that the Sustainability Advisory Board has been able to do, things that are probably not appropriate for us to do. But I think one of the things that Kim was really emphasizing last fall is that the Sustainability Advisory Board is primarily responsible for making recommendations to the City Council about changes in policy in one way or another. And that is like our primary goal. Although I did have a chance to talk with both Rory and John last week about like whether it would be possible to engage in other activities like the educational activities, the educational series, as well as kind of looking at whether or not we could in fact kind of individually address some of the issues that came up at our planning meeting in October. And they encouraged us to to explore possibilities if people were interested in taking them on. So I'll touch upon that as we kind of go through the meeting further on. But Mike, do you want to share anything just in terms of your historical review that would be useful?
Well, in general, I'm not sure if all members of the board have been able to see the document that I put together. I think, Greg, I might have just emailed it to you.
Okay, but I'll
but I
then
can-
forward it to everybody else. But why don't you just kind of summarize it?
Sure. So I just wanted to include a list of the things that I understood the board to have previously addressed. I know in the past we've had some conversations of, members will suggest like perhaps, hey, let's look at an inner city shuttle to help get people between, some of the busier areas of town. But I learned when I asked the question that had already kind of been examined, and it turned out to not really be a practical program to implement here. And so I wanted to just make note of things like that so that we can have productive conversations that that potentially touch on new things that that we can work on rather than taking time to revisit old things that we've done previously. So there's the shuttle route that had been looked at previously. That's not really a very practical thing to do. I did want to note also that in some of the planning documents, we make reference to setting goals for the city's carbon emissions relative to a baseline audit that's to be conducted. It took us a while, but we did get our hands on energy use data for the period from October 2019 through October 2022. I need to go through and just kind of like put that into a sensible and digestible format. And I suppose one thing that we could do is just, I don't know if it would just be us as a board saying we want to make this our baseline, or if there's some extra utility behind asking council to make that an official baseline for any planning that happens relative to like carbon emissions. Charity, it looks like you've got your hand up if you'd like to ask a question.
Oh yeah, I was just going to comment that in the the transportation thing you just mentioned, the cities, I saw it in the offering. They already do that. They're having a shuttle time that they could pick up. And so I think that's why the city's already doing that for people who want to get back and forth for different, like going to Lake Oswego or not. Isn't that correct? That was in the that was in the when they sent out the Westland activities and recreation booklet. It was in there that they are doing that for people. They're actually offering a shuttle now for different times.
Do you know about that, Dylan?
I'm not sure what that is. If that the ACC, the Adult Community Center, does have a bus and offers some sort of services. I'm not quite sure what they are though. I have to look into that.
Okay, thank you.
The version of the shuttle service that I understood to have been examined was, say a shuttle that runs between the part of town that's up by City Hall, over down in the historic West Linn district, and then kind of in the 43 corridor, and it would just operate on a loop, letting people get between those areas. And I think the idea was to have something that operated full time was just not practical.
Gotcha.
That's
Thank
my
you.
understanding. Sure. Let's see what else is in here. So I listed the education series topics that we've covered previously. I don't think we necessarily need to shy away from some of these. It might be quite valuable to revisit them on a regular basis. Topics like composting techniques, water conservation, gardening, neighborhood resilience program, recycling practices, eco school network, just to name a few. They'll be listed in the document, but just so we have a history of what we've included in our educational series. I wanted to make note that we have previously had conversations about adding curbside composting to the waste collection services. We haven't really bottomed out on that. So the general idea would be that if we wanted to add that kind of service, we would need the council to approve a change in the contract for the waste hauling services. And if I remember right, when we had a conversation with West Linn Refuse, they said it would probably be in the $2 to $3 a month range. So we've got that noted in there. Let's see. One of the goals for 2022 that the council asked us to look at was revisions to the Community Development Code. So I think sometime, or was it 2021? I might be mixing my date up.
2021.
We issued a recommendation to the city that included a number of items, but eventually the biggest takeaway from that was that we wanted to see changes to the city's tree code. And we have gotten a revision of the tree code to be put on the planning docket for the city's planning department. I think an additional step that we need to take there is to, put some more general recommendations together so that it's understood like what we're hoping to see on that in terms of changes to the tree code, and hopefully putting together some way of helping them get in contact with somebody from the organization that helped revise the tree code for Milwaukee. I think they had somebody from outside their city help them with that. What do I have here? Another thing that we've discussed is tiered water billing. As I understand it, there's just a flat rate for units of water, and to encourage conservation, we've discussed previously issuing a recommendation to basically do like marginal or tiered pricing for water to discourage excessive use. I think the last thing I have noted on here is where we've asked the city to the extent possible, electrify their fleet of city vehicles. And we've had some positive feedback from council. And I know that Councilor Member Relier has also voiced his desire to see the landscape maintenance equipment be electrified as well, not just in terms of its climate impact, but just it's loud as can be and quite annoying. So those things are detailed in this document. We'll make sure that a copy gets out to all the members, and that can just be something that we update once a year as needed, so that as members roll in and out of this group, there's kind of a continuity to the efforts that we are undertaking here.
So thanks, Mike. Any other questions for Mike just about that historical perspective? Thanks for doing that. I also wanted to mention that like one of the requirements for membership on the citizen advisory committees or boards is solid attendance. And if it turns out that you're not able to get to a meeting, it's important to just let either Mike or me know. And there's a kind of a limit to the number of unexcused absences that you can have and still remain on the board. So I think it's useful just to be aware of that. I want to move ahead in the agenda so that we can talk about some of the educational offerings while Charity is still here. And one of the things that Charity had suggested is that we consider having some kind of presentation that would be available to the public on Earth Day in April. And so I wanted to just kind of air that before the board in its entirety, kind of recognizing that attendance at our online educational series has been pretty spotty. And we will, as I've informed you, try to do an in-person event in February showing the film A Scientist's Warning. That's about Bill Ripple, an ecologist at OSU. And he will be participating in a question answer period with a student panel from Westland High School at that point. But I wanted, while Charity is still here, just to explore the possibility of trying to do something on Earth Day. I checked with John and Rory about whether it would be okay for us to sponsor something like that. And they said yes, but there wouldn't be any staff time to be able to help it. So it would really require our involvement and ability to do that. And so since you mentioned it, Charity, I just wanted to check to see, like, would you have any interest in taking a lead on making sure that that happens? Charity, are you still there?
I'm still here. I switched to my car because I'm driving now to taking my daughter to Rosemont for her choir concert.
Right.
So I kind of mixed it. My phone kind of took over there for a second. So I apologize. I think my hand's still up even. I can take it down.
Did you hear my question?
No, tell me your question
Okay,
again.
the question is, I wanted to switch to the educational ed series right now
Yes,
because of the
yes,
fact that you had made a suggestion about trying to sponsor events on Earth Day towards the end
yeah.
of April. And so I guess my question is, if you could kind of describe what you have in mind, and then would you be willing to take the lead on trying to make that happen?
Oh,
there,
yeah.
there
So,
isn't any staff support for that, so it would be up to us.
right. So, it was just I think one thing that's happening is we just had our PTO meeting last night at Rosemont, and it's been really difficult. Regini's been helping me, but it's been very difficult to get students to attend for a green team. And so we were asked to be part of basically the Rosemont Gives Back program in the spring. And it would be something similar to that, where we maybe just more city awareness of programs that they could be doing as far as upcycling, um, recycling resources, like you said, electric, there's like electric vehicles and what's available for that. And for Earth Day, they're going to do, we're looking at some of the programs we're looking at are, for example, um, one of the local foster agencies is in desperate need of shoes and sweatshirts and sweaters for all ages. And they, my friend who volunteers there was saying, if you have anything, please let me know. And I thought it'd be very well in hand of how we, instead of buying new clothes and upcycling, so the the middle school is looking at doing something like that. Rosemont Gives Back. Same thing for the city to give back to to people in need. Same thing for the food bank, food that is needed. So we're doing something like that as well, just to add to that. So it would be an awareness time for many aspects, because as you know, um, everyone has a different, everyone has a different passion. And so it would be a way for us to tap into people to give them that opportunity, whether it's composting, how to compost, which I struggle with, whether it's, just being resourceful as far as, like you said, having a program where we have clothes that are needing to be reused instead of thrown out, and how if they are completely worn out, what to do, where to take them, and different programs that are offered that we can tap into. So I guess it would be, yeah, and I'm happy to take the lead. On Earth Day, it'd be fun just to have almost like an Earth Fair. The schools have done it in the past. I have a lot of support from the Eco School team at other schools that do this every year and do some neat things just to help give awareness. So almost like having a good time to have a way to bring community out to show like what they could be doing for the earth, and just different information that we can provide them, I guess, really. So does that sound interesting at all, or?
Well, I think we can have a conversation about it. I know you've got to leave shortly, but I just wanted to make sure that you had an opportunity to kind of share the idea while we were here. Do you have a sense about whether or not it would be possible to actually hold the event at Rosemont Ridge?
I don't know if we could. I can find out from the principal, because it would be, Earth Day is on a Saturday. I
Right.
think it's April 22nd, I believe. And so I can definitely find out. I mean, if it's a nice day, of course, it's always great. We could, have it, it'd be wonderful to have it like up at the Adult Community Center if that's even available, but I don't know if it's available. They probably have too many programs going on. But I can always ask. I can definitely ask and see if that'd be something we could do. Because if it's, as you know, if it's bad weather, it's got to be inside.
No, exactly. Yeah. And that's, the large spaces are primarily in the schools. And so
Yeah.
having
Well,
that
one
kind of
place,
collaboration would be important. So,
I could ask though that we could rent out if we have a budget. We could ask. That sounds crazy, but the cider ale house in the back, we have it during the day, like on that day on Earth Day, and they have heaters back there, and we could have different people who come and want to talk about their different programs. I'm sure I could get, if we wanted to rent that space, it's not expensive. If we have any type of budget, I definitely could ask Anne, and people will definitely come out because I'm sure they would be serving, you know, their homemade ciders and beer. People wanted to do that. So
yeah,
also
we
be another
don't have a
opportunity.
budget. Um,
Okay.
but,
Well, that's
so,
another.
but I think that would be, you know, it still might be worth a question. They might be willing to do it. So I think what I'd like to do now is just kind of open it up to a brief discussion about whether this is something other people on the Sustainability Advisory Board would be interested in trying to do.
Okay, I have a couple of questions here.
Yes.
You know, with whatever discussions that was going on, with my understanding, you know, just a couple of questions to be clarified. Like in Westland, do we have, do we compost or do we take care of, you know, composting separately? So what happens to those waste? Like, you know, are we separating those wastes?
There is no garbage service that picks up compostable food.
Okay.
It only
Okay.
picks up kind of garden debris.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that what happens to those garden debris? Where does it go?
I'm not exactly sure where it goes, other than probably to the whole metro system.
Okay.
So I'm not positive where the garden debris goes.
Yeah, its endpoint is a commercial, like industrial composter.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, one suggestion that I usually, you know, when I discuss with charity is like start from somewhere. We have to start separating the waste. Because right now everything goes together. At least, you know, right now we don't have to worry about composting, but at least we can slowly, you know, inculcate the practice of separating the waste. Say all the food items goes into a separate bin. Anything that is like, you know, you can reuse with it or compost with it goes in a separate bin. And say all the dry waste goes into a separate bin, and something that is like totally into a refuse which could not be, you know, separated or done anything can go in a separate bin. At least, you know, if we can start with separating the waste into 3 bins, that will be the initial, you know, start for anything that we would want to do in the future.
So that is a topic that we will come back to, but I'd like to focus in on the question about whether or not we want to try to do some event on Earth Day.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, great.
Are other people at all interested in trying to support that? Mike?
I would be.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, my understanding is that Earth Day is really a day about, you know, involvement and service. And, you know, what I heard Charity describe essentially is trying to put together kind of like, I don't know, call it a whirlwind tour through all of the different opportunities that people have in this community to get involved. You know, I know that there's community sponsored like recycling programs that don't, you know, that are designed to kind of get around the shortcomings of our recycling hauler here. You know, we've got community gardens. Thank you, Victoria. There's numerous ways to get involved, and having that just as kind of like a little showcase for people might be a really valuable thing to do. And you know, put it all in one place. It's pretty efficient for helping to inform people about things that they may want to get involved in, and hopefully the spirit of Earth Day will encourage them to, you know, take up some of those opportunities.
Dylan, did you have something you wanted to share?
Yeah, I was just looking because the city parks department has held Earth Day events in the past, and I was just looking online, and it looks like they are doing an Earth Day Saturday, April 22nd. It's more of a work party, Earth Day. What do they call it? Earth Day Work Day?
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
at Willamette Park, you know, it's going to probably be removing invasive species and planting plants, things like that. So just something to think about if you were going to have something in a different location to be competing with this other city event, or maybe it's something where you could you could talk to the Parks Department and maybe put some booths out at Willamette Park, you know, maybe a joint thing. So just something to consider.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a joint thing would be great. I mean, yeah, it usually is a work party. I'm sitting in my car. I look like a phantom right now. And so yeah, I've been to the work day, Earth Day parties. it's definitely a select crowd that likes to be involved with pulling weeds and doing the park cleanups. So I think if we involved it where it's more family oriented to bring out, like say there's going to be different fun Earth Day activities, and like Regini is an amazing quiller, and she could have a booth where she shows how to upcycle paper and make art out of it. Just different things like that that could be available, because Willamette Park's wonderful. We could use the covered stage area as a spot. It's just if it's bad weather, it's really hard, very hard to have. It's hard on people who are coming to participate. They have to bring a tent, and it's all that fun stuff. So I don't know if it would compete as much personally, just because I've been involved with those events before, like with Solve. And there's a couple of other programs that do the same type of thing, where the natural tree reservation, that they have work parties. So it might be a different crowd that we're attracting to, and they could absolutely do both, but I don't think you're going to have the same people personally coming from the work party that you would like coming out for like an awareness fun Earth Day event.
Victoria, do you have any thoughts about it?
Nothing to propose in any direction. I'm still sorting through it all to think what would work. If the schools are all doing something, then that's happening there, and the people who would be excited to do something, who have children, they would be at their schools.
No, they wouldn't. It's only during the day.
Oh,
I have to
okay.
be honest with you, I've run these before, like at Trillium and the other people that have ran them for the eco school. It's just more like an awareness week, like bike walk to school day, and then we're dimming the lights today to save energy. It's more like giving purpose to it, or we're going to be no waste lunching, so you're bringing everything back home. So it's not like parents are participating. And so it's definitely only Cedar Oak. There's one they have done it in the past, where they'll have like the last day on Friday, and it's never on Saturday, obviously, because they don't have school. So it's just always that week. They just do an awareness week.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to see something for the city personally, because on the actual day of, if we wanted to try it and see, to give some meaning around Earth Day instead of just doing a work party, because we've been talking about this for the eco school, calling it a work party. We've even tried to change the name because it kind of gives a negative connotation to it. So because we do a lot of those, we call them cleanup parties or saving the trees parties at Trillium, that we used to do as far as after school and just pulling weeds and getting the invasive blackberries out to keep them from spraying the Roundup. It was we did that all the time. So it was definitely, it's a select group of parents that come and help. This would be a bit different, where they're coming to get information about how, like different companies that do how to compost, or how do you recycle your clamshells? What are you doing with what are you doing with energy conservation? Have you thought about like changing out your light bulbs? Just different things that people, I know there's quite a few people who just don't even think about it. Everything just goes in the trash. So I think just giving it a day of awareness and of why it was so important.
So if there's no objection, I'd like to suggest that Charity and I just get together between now and our next meeting and try to hammer out a proposal, so that we have an idea about what the dimensions of this idea would be, and we can bring it back to you for a decision in February. Does that sound okay, Charity?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay, and we can kind of see what happens with this, so that we don't, again, compete with the city with that particular workday. But I think that the location will really be critical. And finding out like whether something like this could be done at Rosemont Ridge would be important.
Okay.
Because I think it probably needs to be inside if we're inviting other people to come and make presentations.
Yeah, just to have a booth, like we're doing a career day here and it's definitely in the gym, and people who have different, obviously it's career day for the 8th graders to come and explore what people do for a living. And so it's critical that, it's just basically booths. All it was is tables and just you have a table and people can rotate
Right.
and come and find different information. So I'll ask the principal just if that's even a possibility, and
Okay,
then you and I
great.
can talk offline.
Thanks.
Yeah.
There are a couple of other education issues that I'd like to bring up. One is just publicity for the event that will be happening on February 8th, where we'll be showing the film about Bill Ripple. Do people have any thoughts about like where else we could publicize it to try to get the best attendance that we can? Terry is going to include it in an article that he'll write for the Westland Tidings and provide information about that particular event. And then we'll also he'll be putting stuff up on Facebook. I'll put some stuff up on the neighbor site. Are there ways that we could potentially advertise it through city sites, either Mary or Dylan?
Yeah, definitely. If you have a description or any graphics or anything, if you just want to send that my way, I can put it on the city calendar. I can talk to our comm staff about putting it in the newsletter and our social media too.
Okay, great, good.
I just need a description. Yeah.
Victoria?
I think it should be advertised at the high school and the middle schools.
And how would you suggest advertising it?
I can send it to again, you send it to the principal and it has to go through an approval process for their newsletter. For any of the schools, they're going to have to review it.
And it's soon. It's only a couple of
Yeah.
weeks now.
But I mean, I'm going to probably see her in a few minutes and I can ask her if I send it to her and just say it's part of like eco awareness. But usually the district has to, anything that's you're inviting the public or the students to come watch, they're going to want to review it first.
Yeah. So if you could check that out and then let me know, that would be great. Jim Hartman has helped me to organize all of this through the high school. And so the high school students will all be informed about it and will be encouraged to come. Jim is going to try to get extra credit for folks. And then I'm asking Jim to have his students invite parents to come as well. So hopefully that'll mean we can get 20, 30, maybe 40 people, which would be great, just for Bill Ripple's time. Dylan, if I were to make some kind of flyer, would it be possible for the city to print up like maybe 30 or 40 of them so that they could be posted around town?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, good. I'll try to create some graphic then. Yeah, Victoria.
You can also take those flyers to the secretaries at several churches. Now, I do not know what churches are in West Linn.
Uh-huh.
But that wouldn't be too hard to find out. And those flyers can be taken to the office staff and ask them if they can post them.
Yeah, I've met with some of those folks
How does that
in
work?
the presentations I've been giving about neighborhood resilience. So I know a few churches to take them to that would get some coverage. So that's a great idea.
Great.
I'll do that as well. Okay, so that gives me some real useful guidance in terms of publicity. The other thing that Mike and I got from Terry is an invitation to have a booth at the Old Fashioned Fair next summer. Once again, is there interest in trying to do that?
I would do that again.
Yeah.
You do it again?
I missed it last time. I don't want to miss it again.
Okay, so your game.
Yeah.
Charity Rangini, would you be willing to help? And we just did it for one day, so it wasn't like too burdensome in terms of the amount of time there.
Sure, but I don't understand what's the what. Can you please tell me about the initiative?
Okay,
It's like a summer.
Virginia
gathering.
hasn't been here yet.
well, that's right. Go ahead,
Yeah.
describe it, Mike.
I've only been to the one that I went to last year, but it's a summer fair. There's live music, there's food vendors, there's things for kids to play around on. There's just a lot of people there. On a nice warm day, we set up a booth and we had some flyers for people. there was a magnet for detailing out all the proper ways to recycle recycle things in Westland. Those were really popular. People really liked the magnets. So we'll probably have to get some more of those this year.
Didn't you have an electric scooter too? Didn't you have, like, I couldn't do it, so you were out of town.
It was
We had
e-bikes.
electric bikes.
Yeah, the e-bikes.
Okay,
That's
that's
right.
Yeah, we had
cool.
e-bikes,
E-bikes.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. Sure.
Okay, well, we'll go ahead and make a reservation. I noticed, Dylan, that there's a charge of like $225 to have a booth there. Do you know, like, whether the folks who run the Old Fashioned Fair expect like civic groups to pay that
No,
$225?
we didn't have to pay last year, Greg, because we're part of the city. So they
We're
just
part of the city. Okay.
they gave us a booth, and that they did the
Okay.
same thing for the arts and culture. I think they offered it anyway.
Okay.
Like for the farmers market, when I did the farmers market, there was no charge for me to have a space because
Okay.
it's a city group.
Great. Good. That's good to know. So I'll go ahead and get that process going, and we can see what happens with that. With regard to other educational offerings, do you want to hold off until February to have a more extensive conversation about whether we want to go ahead and have the monthly series, just given the attendance? I'm thinking that by doing the fair, doing this collaborative effort, like with the school and the effort during the summer, we may in fact be able to touch more people than we've been able to kind of attract to the educational series. So do you want to hold off on having a conversation about additional planning for the educational series until February, the February meeting?
I'm fine with that.
Because we will have something in February, and then we just need to, and then we'll also have something in April with the Earth Day. Okay, so just in terms of things that we'll need to kind of come back to, Charity and I will then try to meet between now and our next meeting date to kind of hammer out what the Earth Day might look like, and also get a sense about like whether there's any place that it could in fact be held. So good. Let's move on then to, I just wanted to report back about the annual report and where things stand with the city council with regard to our recommendations. I went to the meeting that the city council had on January 9th and learned basically that no decision will be made about which of those recommendations to pursue as part of the city council's agenda moving into the rest of the year until we have a complete city council. So we'll have to wait until the election is held in March for new members as well as for the mayor. And so that was a disappointment because I know that we were hoping that there would be a decision earlier than that. But I think that you know, given the fact that Todd departed as well, there was a pretty small city council who was kind of basically dealing with the governance of the city between now and late spring. Mary, do you have any thoughts about that?
With regard to which aspect of that?
To just the whole process of a decision-making regarding the recommendations that we had shared with the city council back in December.
I think as far as the decisions generally, our thought was to not make decisions before we have a full council. So there's only 3 of us now.
Right.
And not that I'm interested in delaying anything, but the other aspect of all of this, and I don't believe there's a lack of enthusiasm or even advocacy for any of these points, but more a lack of finances. So with respect to hiring a consultant or adding FTE, I'm understanding that is the biggest challenge that West Linn is facing right now is financially, with regard to also the tree code if I'm understanding from the planning department's perspective, it takes a certain amount of staff time to facilitate all of those changes. So again, back to work hours, staff hours, and kind of a financial situation. So I know that I haven't heard anyone say none of this is important or I don't think this is a priority. So it's not that. Just so that I hope that that is not being, misunderstood, that we don't have a will to do it. Because, I mean, speaking for myself, I know I have a will to do everything possible to improve our environmental impact as a city. But I think right now, having 3 people on council, we thought we should wait until we have at least the full council.
Right. One of the things that I talked with John and Rory about was just how it might be possible to make sure that the work of the citizen advisory boards is more impactful. And I think John said that it's probably one of the top 5 things that he wants to deal with over the next year in his role as new city manager is, finding ways that the link between city council and the advisory boards is stronger. So one of the things that he suggested was that at the goal setting meeting that the city council will hold, once it's a complete city council, representatives from the different advisory boards will be invited to share their perspective about what they see as the most important of the recommendations that they had presented. So hopefully that'll help us feel as though the kinds of things that we come up with are at least given a hearing. And so with luck, that is one of the things that might happen kind of moving into the future. And I think that really looking at the budgetary issues is really kind of a critical element of this, because until those budgetary issues are somehow grappled with, then I think the work of the Sustainability Advisory Board will probably continue to be low priority. And so it's I think there really is, I think, philosophically a real interest in these concerns on the part of certainly John and Rory and Mary. So I think that there is a group of people who we would have their ear. The challenge is to really kind of figure out how to come up with activities or resolutions that don't necessarily cost a lot, but will kind of set a direction. And I think, that's one place where you could be especially helpful, Dylan, is in really kind of giving us guidance about how to actually achieve the most impact that we can, given our circumstances, not having like a sustainability coordinator employed by the city, and not having much money to actually kind of implement the work and the ideas that come out of this group. But I think that is like the place that we might be able to, begin to have more of an impact than has necessarily been the case in the past. So I want to move on to just the sustainability.
I'd like to comment on that,
Mike.
Just in terms of the relationship between the board and council. When I think of this as being an advisory board, one of the things that I imagined prior to joining this would be that the council would come to us and say, we would like your advice on this thing that we are considering. Mm-hmm. During my tenure on the board, I don't believe that's happened. And so I'd just like to ask Councilor Baumgartner, if something comes up that, you think would be relevant for us to, provide some thoughts on, like, I'd encourage you to, ask us to add an agenda item to these meetings so that we can have that conversation with you.
Uh-huh.
Yes, I'm sure that is one of what I think the meeting with Greg, John, and Rory was discussed, because John and I have been talking about that same topic, is kind of clarifying roles of advisory boards in relation to the council. And just so you know, we just got sent an email today about a potential date for our council retreat, and I know we'll probably be talking about that. So I'm not sure if that would be the time where advisory boards would come, but possibly. So it's not a firm date. It was the first couple weekends in April. So first weekend or second weekend. So I'm sure you'll be kept up to date about that time.
And some of
Excellent.
the things that during the time that I've been on the SAB that have been done thanks to a request from council have included developing an appendix kind of that would lay out the items in the sustainability strategic plan that dealt with climate change, and then the request to kind of examine the CDCs and make recommendations from the Sustainability Advisory Board about changes in the city code that would kind of address concerns. So I think that the work that had been done the year before you joined the board, Mike, was tied into that. So there has been an effort on the part of the council to try to do that.
Mhm.
So
And I will add one more thing, Greg,
Yeah.
if I may. The other good news actually is that we're not having to push everything. Some things are actually coming from the state. So there has been statewide legislation about climate friendly and equitable cities
Right.
planning. So, I mean, I think that it's no longer just a few people saying, hey, what can we do about climate change? I understand that more people are accepting that we need to change how we're doing and planning going forward. So that's
actually,
encouraging.
that is one question that I had, Mary, with regard to the state requirement regarding climate um, and equitable communities. Uh, are there ways in which the Sustainability Advisory Board could weigh in on that and make recommendations as it relates to that? Like, I've got that document. Is it the sort of thing that we ought to be kind of reading, reviewing, and trying to kind of point to things that we think that the planning department ought to take into consideration?
I think that would be a logical step. It doesn't have to be just advice to council. It can be public comment. I mean, the Sustainability Advisory Board could, for instance, spend some time studying that document, come up with identify some areas that you would like our planning department to spend more time or attention on, and go to a planning commission meeting and give public comment, for instance, or even the CCI.
Mhm.
So, but yes, or, if you rather just go straight to council, I think that also, all of those things, any of the above.
Good. So that might be something worth considering moving into the future as well.
Dylan, did you have any other suggestions? I thought I saw you make a nod your head.
No, I think what you said sounds pretty good. I was just looking, if you go on the planning's page, they do have a website about the climate friendly and equitable communities implementation. So SAB members can look at that. There's a guide there and some info to look at.
Right. So
Thank you.
Awesome.
I had sent out the link for the sustainability strategic plan. Did folks have a chance to take a look at that by any chance?
I've looked at it previously.
Uh-huh. Dylan said if folks were interested, we could get hard copies of it. I had gotten a hard copy a couple of years ago, and I have found it to be an incredibly thoughtful and comprehensive document that could well kind of serve as a guide for the kinds of things that we decide to work on. And actually, in reading through it, there were a number of items that don't necessarily cost a lot of money, just in terms of audits, in terms of public education that we could potentially take on. As well as then looking at different kinds of issues that we might want to focus in on for a particular year. Would it make sense to get hard copies out to folks? Would you appreciate having that as a kind of a guide that we could use as we kind of think through our own activities?
I'm content with a digital copy.
You're content with the digital copy? Any, Ranjini or Victoria, digital sufficient?
I have, it's a lot easier for me to have a hard copy.
Yeah,
Okay.
it would be easy for me to have a hard copy as well.
Okay, so I'll see whether we can get some hard copies to you.
That would be
We
great.
can go, I could go
And
pick one up.
if you could both send me your mailing address, just via email, then I'll have something that I can mail it to. So
Sure.
Greg?
that would be great. But
Come to City Hall and
I'm
pick it
hoping you'll
up.
have a chance to take a look at it. It really is comprehensive, and many of the ideas that came up at our October planning meeting are really reflected in it in a variety of ways. So it was good work that was done in 2015, revised in 2021, and just with regard to climate. But I think is something that we ought to draw upon. Yeah, Mike.
Just a question to Councilor Baumgartner or Dylan. Is there any sense for how the city makes use of that document? Is that something that gets referenced in the course of city business, or like, does this document, like, what purpose does it serve for the city? Does it get looked at?
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the city staff are doing with it.
It does get referenced in different processes, and I'll admit I'm not super familiar with the whole thing, but I do see it popping up over time, and I mean definitely comes in through recommendations with you in this group as well. Yeah,
Because, like, when I read this document, I see that the councils of the past have essentially endorsed this as like the framework for planning things. I don't know that there are probably other documents that serve similar purposes, but my hope is that this document is guiding decisions in some respect.
yeah, no, it definitely does. I mean, things like the electric vehicle thing, certainly things like we have some green power changes that are coming, and that kind of started with that plan. So yeah, it does guide a lot of those things.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
And just out of curiosity, Mary, do city council members read the sustainability strategic plan?
I don't know if other people have other than me.
So it isn't something that people are encouraged to do.
I've never been given that assignment by anyone other than my participation in as the council liaison, to this group.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying other people haven't read it. And
Right,
previous councils have potentially read it. I just don't know.
I kind of pulled together the four primary recommendations that the SAB had kind of pulled together when they did the report back in 2015, and I'll send that to you, all of you, just in terms of kind of thinking through like whether any of those might be worth really trying to take on. But so many of these strategic planning documents tend to be written but then shelved and don't necessarily turn up in policymaking in a particularly deep way. And so it seems like one of the things that we could do is serve as a kind of reminder to both the council and the city staff that this exists. And that it really represents some significantly good work that I think could really be worth having in the forefront of our minds rather than being on the periphery. One of the things that I hope to deal with this evening as well is just kind of looking at a variety of things that came up at our October planning meeting that were not really tied into policy issues, but that could in fact be potentially addressed if we wanted to as individuals or as teams with different groups in the city. And when I was typing up my notes from that October planning meeting, I came up with a list of different things that had come up with regard to different projects that could be taken on. One was, for example, Mike's thought that the Parks Department could be approached about installing bike racks at Mary S. Young Park. And so that would be the sort of thing that Mike could potentially do. Other folks talked about potentially they were talking to the transportation board about making more extensive use of the Safe Street process being developed by area schools, so that there was some kind of coordination between the work of volunteers at the school level and the city. Also talking, well, we talked about the transportation, talking with the Parks Recreation Advisory Board about more community gardens, like in Marius Young, or seeing like where it might be possible to extend the kinds of things that are going on at Fields Bridge right now. Talking with the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board about planting more edible food, for example. Speaking with the school districts about developing strategies to reduce idling when kids are dropped off in the morning, or strengthening the school to farm program. So those are the kinds of things that we could potentially take on, that would not necessarily be tied into to policy making. And I checked with John and Rory about whether or not that would be an acceptable thing for us to potentially do as well. And they said, go for it if you feel like doing it. There's no problem talking as representatives from the Sustainability Advisory Board with other city boards about things that we would like them to deal with. So I wanted to raise that as an issue with the group as to whether or not that's something that people would feel comfortable doing, because it would really require us to just become more involved as individuals outside the context of these meetings with other city boards, kind of arranging to speak with them, arranging to speak with people in different city departments, and potentially, going to the school like Kim did last year, kind of talking about the value of purchasing some electric school buses, which I've seen is now happening in Beaverton. So thoughts about that as something that the Sustainability Advisory Board might be able to take on.
I think it'd be great if we did things like that. I mean, these are things, theoretically that any citizen could, or any member of the community could engage in. But as members of this board, I think, claiming membership might get us a few extra points in terms of our advocacy for these things.
Yeah.
So I don't see why not. I mean, we could do these as just individuals, but we should do this, I think.
Okay. Victoria Rangini, how do you feel about this?
I'm fine with it. I attended a Transportation Advisory Board meeting. No, it was Parks and Rec. A couple of months ago. They asked me to come because of the community garden.
Right.
But while I was there, I made it clear that I was also part of this board, and it was interesting to tie the two together. I felt very comfortable.
Good. As a new person, Reggie, you don't feel like you've got to jump in, but how do you feel about this as a kind of a direction for the Sustainability Advisory Board?
Yeah, it looks interesting, but I think I need more time to also understand what is possible and what the process is and all of it. So probably I'll be ready for the next meeting, to give my inputs. So I'm yet to go through the 80-page document. So probably if I look into it, I can give more inputs.
Okay, great, good, thank you.
Yeah.
So, Mary or Dylan, do you have any thoughts about, us trying to kind of as citizens going and talking with these different groups, but kind of carrying the label on top of our heads as members of the Sustainability Advisory Board? Does it make sense to try to do this?
So talking to which different groups?
Oh, well, like to the Parks Department, to other citizen advisory boards, potentially, talking to folks in the schools.
I would encourage always all of that. I think you're not limited in, your marching orders to, I think you guys should do whatever comes to mind. I know that there was a past discussion. I was trying to remember about the potential of more community gardens in city right-of-way areas that are kind of really overgrown problems of, weed patches and blackberry mess. I know there's some that are that are more like just a ditch on the side of the road, and that's not what I'm talking about, but there's some areas where there's some pretty sizable parcels that aren't being currently done anything with, but they're city right of way. Do you know anything about that, Dylan? Do you remember what I'm talking about? Or
We did talk about 3 years ago.
yeah, okay. That's what I remember. Because I remember
Victoria.
looking at the map of different right of way areas.
Yeah.
Whatever happened to that?
I don't know. That's not one I was involved in.
Yeah,
I do
I
remember.
didn't think you were. I think Darren was the liaison maybe then.
Mhm.
No, Darren wasn't the liaison. Chris was the liaison. But Victoria was on the board at that point, and so you probably have a good memory of it.
I don't have a good memory about almost everything. However, that did come up when I was talking to the Parks and Rec Advisory Board. They were inquiring about gardens hither and yon. And as far as doing it in various rights of way places, what it came down to was just do it. If citizens in a neighborhood have a back alley that can be used, do it until somebody from the city says, excuse me, I need this space. And so just go ahead. The problem for Parks and Rec is water. They do not
That's the big
have
deal.
the money or the manpower to install water systems almost anywhere. They're having trouble now just maintaining the water systems that are already in place for our garden, because it's in a part of West Linn. It was one of the first places that was plumbed, or however you want to put that, where pipes were laid, and they're breaking a lot. So for Parks and Rec, it's a problem of manpower and money supporting gardens.
Yeah.
But as far as citizens just saying, this is an empty space, it's not being used, go for it. The way it's written into the city charter is vague.
Mike.
Is there room for the city to make some sort of declaration or statement about the suitability of, people just deciding to start a garden in an available patch of right of way, saying like, just want community members to know, in case you're not aware, that you can plant some flowers here or some vegetables. You have to water it yourself. We're not going to help you with that. But as long as it's not getting in the way of anything that the city needs to do, help yourself.
It's kind of like that, but I have no idea whom to approach.
Well,
See
we're
that
talking
going in
about Ken Warner.
the email, the blast that goes out from the city periodically.
Right. The city, sure.
So
it
if I
would
can
be a
jump in.
conversation with Ken.
Yeah,
first.
Dylan.
Go for it, Dylan.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say we do have. I wouldn't say that we're able to just say go out and do it. We do have in the Public Works Department does manage public like utility easements and public right of ways. And if somebody wants to do something on a right of way, there's like a form. So it's something, if there was a specific spot, you could do this form. I don't think there's a fee or anything. If it was as part of SAB or something, I probably wouldn't be one anyway. But there is a way to get it approved doing something in a right of way. So that would be like the formal way to do it through Public Works.
Cool. So that might be something worth getting more clarity on, and then sharing with neighborhood associations as a means for potentially getting information out.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a good idea to go through Public Works. Also, just because call before you dig, is that the saying? So we wouldn't want anybody digging somewhere and running into something that caused a problem.
Right. Good point. Is that something you'd be interested in taking on, Victoria, and then reporting back to us what you've learned
I'm
for
interested.
our next meeting?
I could do that, but I wasn't taking notes just now. So why don't you and I just email a little bit and get it clear what I need to
Okay.
check with. If I talk to Ken or Public Works or whom I speak with.
It sounds like Public Works, and just I guess Dylan knows the process best. So maybe get in touch with Dylan about the ins and outs of what getting the permission to use the right of way entails, and then checking to see like whether or not that's the sort of thing that could easily be communicated to the community.
Right. I think it'd be fun.
Okay, good, great.
Okay. So Dylan, I'll try to get hold of you.
I've got a couple of other items that I needed to raise before we close, and we've got 13 minutes. I got a letter from a woman named Linda Woodley, who's a resident of West Linn. She's an energy efficiency consultant, and she wanted us to know about an online seminar about electric vehicles. And so I will send out her memo to you so that you can, if you want to join that particular seminar, you can, to learn more about electric vehicles. And if you do participate in that, it would be great if you could report back to it. She's a local resident in West Linn who has taken on this particular project through SAGE, which is the Senior Advocates for Generational Equity Program. And so they're trying to identify communities that would like to participate in these educational seminars about electric vehicles. So I'll get that to you. And then I got a request from a woman named Susie Peterson, who is now head of the Backyard Habitat Program. And she is interested in meeting with us either in February or March, but in particular is interested in our support for them in pursuing a grant from the city to do this program. They had $7,000 from the city in 2021, 2022, and have another $8,000 between 2022 and June of 2023. And she's interested in trying to get a similar contract moving forward into the future. She said apparently the SAB in the past had made a proposal to the city council to get that grant a couple of years ago, and had said that that would be something that we could potentially do, or simply writing us a letter of support for that particular project. So I wanted to know like whether or not other members of the SAB were interested in trying to either invite her in to speak more about that before deciding on a course of action, or simply writing a letter of support at this point for that particular project. And Mary, maybe you could say like whether or not you have any recollection of this proposal going through during the last couple of years that you've been on the board.
I was just racking my brain trying to think. I don't think it was when I was on in the last 2 years after I was on council. So tell me more about it. What is it again? It's
the Backyard Habitat Program, where people have their backyard certified as being.
Yes, I know the program. I don't remember that being a grant that was applied for or, given money toward, although I'm all for that cause. So I feel like I would remember.
Yeah. Dylan, do you recall? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, if I remember right, I think the last council during the budget process gave that $15,000 during the budget process. I think it was one of those things where there was a certain amount of extra money in whatever's the right fund, and council decided to give it to a couple of different things, that being one of them. So if SAB, and I can't remember what SAB did last time, but it was probably something like, a letter recommendation from SAB saying, please support this to council, and it was given to them as part of the budget process. If my memory.
You think that that's probably the best thing that we can do, is just kind of provide that letter of support?
Yeah, and definitely with some, background data and saying what they've been doing these last couple of years, and I'm sure that Susie has all that, something that's convincing enough that council would be willing to put money towards it.
Yeah, she says there are something like 169 participants in West Linn, which is apparently pretty good. So, did you have your hand up, Victoria?
I just have no memory of any of this, and I'm an aficionado for sure. So I'm a little surprised. I don't remember us writing a letter of
Uh-huh.
this in the past. Interesting.
Of course, like Cindy, who was on the board when you and I were on the board, was the person who ran that program for a number of years.
Yeah.
So
Maybe
what I don't know is whether it happened when Cindy was on the SAB or afterwards.
Yeah, I don't
That's
know.
what I was thinking. But
Yeah.
I mean, full disclosure, I was on SAB and I don't remember. So Victoria, don't feel bad.
Okay.
It must have been when you and I were off on vacation, Victoria.
Somewhere in La La
They said
Land.
that Terry had somehow taken the lead in bringing it to the city council. So whatever.
Well, it's
at
a
least
good
that's what
cause.
Susie had said.
I'm already at 1 yes vote. So there you go.
Okay. Good.
Okay, so if we need to write that letter and put that together, I'm happy to, if you could get me her contact information, Susie Peterson's contact information, then I would put together what she needs and put together a letter.
Okay. So I think that probably does require a vote. So can I have a motion that we're interested in supporting the backyard habitat program and with regard to their request? Yeah, Mike.
I move to support the Backyard Habitat Certification Program in their pursuit of a city grant.
Okay. A second?
I second it.
Okay. Discussion? Further discussion?
159 in West Linn. There are 3 on my street, in my block.
Well, that's what Susie had told me.
That's my discussion.
So,
That's my discussion.
right. Shall we have a vote? Call the question. So all in favor?
Aye.
Raise your hands. And so unanimous that we'll do that. So I'll get the information to you, Victoria, and then we can kind of, why don't you go ahead and write a letter, and then we can share it with other members of the board to see whether they have any
Yeah.
suggestions or not, and
Right.
then send it to the city council. Or we could review it actually at our February meeting.
I would not write a letter without your review.
What did you say?
I would not write a letter without your review.
Okay, good enough. So any other questions? Mike, have you kind of kept track of action items that we need to take into consideration, like individually?
I've taken a couple notes here. My intention for the putting the notes together is to watch the YouTube version of this and do that. But as far as the action items that I've got written down, you and Charity were going to discuss the Earth Day event and kind of get a map for that together. And we've got Victoria with an action item for writing a letter of support for the Backyard Habitat Certification Program.
Okay.
Victoria?
I also have one to contact Dylan about using public works right of way. Figure that's out, sort of thing. I'm vague on it, so I have to learn about it.
Okay, good.
On that one.
Great. So that, I think, takes me to the end. I had one other question for you folks. How do you feel about continuing having virtual meetings like this? Or is there any interest in meeting in person? Victoria would obviously like to meet in person.
I'd be fine to meet in person or virtually. My wife typically has the car on Thursday nights, so I would need to find some way to get to wherever we would be.
Okay.
Mike, I'll pick you up. I don't care where you live. It's West Linn. It's not that big.
That's true.
Do you have
And
any
when the summer comes
one way
around,
or
I can
the
just
other,
ride my
Ren?
bike.
Do you have any strong feelings one way or the other, Ranjini?
I'm good, with online meeting as well as offline. Both should work fine.
Okay. And Dylan, you should kind of add your piece, because I know Dylan would prefer that we to kind of stay virtual.
Yeah, that would be my preference. Just logistically is easier, and also it's more carbon neutral. So there's that.
It's true.
Would the idea be to meet at the city hall or some other location?
I
library?
think in the past we met at City Hall.
Okay.
Yeah, it would probably be City Hall.
Yeah.
All right.
Because we would have to still do a hybrid by law.
And I guess my question with the hybrid, particularly like for public comment or for a member who needed to kind of join online, is are the cameras set up in such a way that you can kind of pretty much see everybody in the room and hear everybody effectively?
There is, and that's part of my hesitation, because it is a little awkward sometimes in those meeting rooms and the camera's kind of far back, and
Yeah.
it's not ideal. I mean, being face to face, like on video like this, when everyone has their own little box, is a little nicer in my personal opinion. So
Yeah, I have been on boards where staff people have all been in the same room, and then all of the rest of the people are all across the country, and so you see 3 or 4 people in the room, but the video and the sound was good enough that it really didn't make much difference just in terms of the quality of the meeting. And so I guess that for me would be my criteria. If for other people on the board, that they didn't feel as though they were at a disadvantage. And when you've done the hybrid meetings, have people complained?
certainly, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Victoria, it might be something we experiment with. Maybe we should try to have our board meeting in February at City Hall, but then see it as an experiment. And maybe one person could participate from afar and see like how it works.
I'll be at the beach in February, so I can be that person.
Oh, no. So if why don't we go ahead and save that experiment until March then?
That's embarrassing, but there it is. Okay.
Okay. But if you could join us, since we're low in numbers anyway, from the beach, that would be great.
I will.
Okay.
We have the opportunity to hold like a mock meeting in place of a live trial.
Dylan, would that be possible?
5 minutes of just us getting on and, a couple people showing up at City Hall to see what it seems like.
I suppose, I mean, if it would be during the workday, I guess that would be.
Ah.
I guess we could just coordinate on when that would be.
Mhm.
Yeah. So do you have that flexibility, Mike?
It would depend. Fridays
Okay.
are probably the easiest for me. Other days of the week are a little more challenging.
Right.
Although wait, no, maybe not Fridays either. Maybe Monday afternoons I could do.
Monday afternoons. Or Victoria and I think both of us are retired, so that we might be able to get away with it, and then somebody else could kind of look from at home.
I mean, it works. I mean, it works. The audio works. It's just we have to there's a speaker in the middle of those conference rooms. We have to connect to that, and you can hear. It's more like you're sitting kind of far away from the camera. I mean,
Right,
it all
yeah,
works.
yeah.
It's just not ideal.
No. Yeah.
I should pay. Okay, that's good feedback.
Okay.
We have our executive sessions and pre-meetings. Well, executive sessions aren't hybrid meeting, but it is challenging to try to do a hybrid, I think. I'm usually there in person, so I'm not trying to call in and hear. But anyway, it is like Dylan just described. It's a long, narrow room. I mean, most of you have been in it before. And so the people who are sitting further away from the camera at the end of the table, it's harder to see them. They're pretty small. But didn't you also mention in your email that a discussion about needing to change this meeting day?
I did initially, but I heard from Kate that Tuesdays were not good for her, and Dylan said that Tuesdays were the best time. And so we talked about this early on in the meeting about about staying with Thursday, the third Thursday. So if she had been able to do a Tuesday, I would have brought it up, but she was not going to be able to do that. So we are at 7:30.
Did we explore the possibility of the second Thursday or the first Thursday, or? She
said to just stay with the third Thursday.
Okay.
And I had said, we could go to one of the other Thursdays. If we were to do that, Dylan, what's your sense about other Thursdays during the month? Like if we were to go to the 1st or the 4th Thursday?
Yeah, I just have to look. I'd look at the CAG calendar and see what other meetings are happening. Because there are a lot of other Thursdays and days where there's 2 or 3
Right.
CAG meetings happening. So especially if we're doing in person, I'd be needing to find space, and yeah.
And did you find out like whether or not it's possible to actually for WebEx to handle 2 or 3 different meetings that the city is holding?
Yes, I did check into that. I remember there was issues with doing that, streaming to YouTube and things, and having overlapping. You have to have like stream keys and things. But we can do it now. Like virtually, it's easier. Yes.
Okay, so that would be a possibility. I can go back to Kate and see like whether one of the other Thursdays would work. While you're all here, if we were to do that, is there any other Thursday of the month, like 1st, 2nd, or 4th, that you would not be able to do?
I mean, or we can look at, if Tuesdays doesn't work, we could look at Wednesdays. Mondays are definitely out because of council, but
Okay.
I could look at Wednesdays as well if that's a better day.
Okay.
I would prefer Thursday, but it's not a must for me.
Victoria?
Other Thursdays are better than the 3rd one for me. So
The other Thursdays are better. Okay. Ranjini, does it make any
Thursdays are
difference?
better, yeah. Thursdays are better for me too.
What's better? Tuesday?
Thursday.
Thursday is better for you, and
Yeah,
are
not
you
Tuesday.
free every Thursday?
Not every Thursday.
Which
Every
Thursday? Which Thursday are you not free on?
It's very difficult to, I do not know. It's very difficult for me to, comment on that. I can plan if I know in advance, like, which Thursday it
Okay.
is. I'm
Okay.
okay with any Thursdays.
Okay, good. So, well, I will check with Kate because it would be nice to have her rather than having a smaller group since we're already missing one person. So I'll see whether another Thursday might work for her as well. And I guess last thing, since we are missing one person, because it's supposed to be a board of 7, if you have any ideas about other people that we might be able to kind of persuade to join the group, you might ask them. I checked with 3 or 4 folks before December or after our last meeting and just got no's from everybody. But if you know of anybody that you think could make a contribution to the board, please approach them or check with me or with Mike, and we can try to do that as well. So our next meeting is scheduled to be on, I think it's February 16th. I don't have, oh, wait a sec.
We can pull up a calendar. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
the
I'm just pulling
16th.
up the calendar. It's February 16th. I was right, at 6 o'clock. So make sure that that's on your calendar unless we've made a change, unless we make a change after I have a chance to speak with Kate Jaspers. So can I have a motion to adjourn?
I think Victoria, did you raise your hand?
oh,
Do you have a
I'm
comment?
sorry. It's just the 16th is my
Oh.
birthday, and I'm having out of town company. My sister's coming from California, so that's just why it'll be a little awkward.
Okay, so you have an excused absence. But
Thank you. I'll try to make it anyway.
Report back to me about what you learned with regard to the community gardens, and then I'll share that. Okay, good. So if there are no other questions, motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second.